Hi everyone, welcome to the panel about mobility in cities in the day of after COVID-19. My name is Boaz, and I'm gonna be helping to moderate this panel. Today, I am the CEO and the co-founder of Navmatic, a startup that focuses on micromobility. And my previous roles, the most relevant one was that I was the co-founder and CEO of Drive TLV, and beforehand, I was the founder and the CEO of EcoMotion. So welcome to our panel. With me in the panel, I have an amazing people from literally all around the world and to share their thoughts about how the cities are changing. And maybe we'll start with a presentation of each person about himself, what he's doing today, and maybe how you personally travel before COVID-19 to work and how you planning to do it after COVID-19. Personally, I'm today living in one of the Silicon Valley suburbs in Sunnyvale, and I think pre-COVID, I was traveling mainly with my private car, and post-COVID, probably also with my private car because we don't really have any other options here. Maria, maybe you can start.
Yeah, thank you very much, Boaz, and hello to everyone out there and to my fellow panelists. So my name's Maria Tsavachidis, and I'm the CEO of EIT Urban Mobility. EIT is the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, and we are an innovation community that is trying to accelerate a change towards more sustainable mobility and more livable urban spaces by bringing together all the different players in the ecosystem. So from the industry players, big, small, medium, to universities, but also cities, research institutes. So bringing everyone together for innovation, also supporting, of course, new entrepreneurial talent. So that is what we're doing, and we're doing this on a pan-European level. So having said that, so we are a European organization. So when you ask me about how did I travel to work before COVID-19, the plane was more or less my mode of transport to work. So traveling a lot to Barcelona, where our central office is, but we have other offices across Europe. So privately, I'm living in the center of Munich. So the car is not really a good option because finding parking is just a nightmare. I had a car, but COVID-19 actually triggered me to not renew my lease. So now I don't have a car anymore, and I'm riding my bicycle. But of course, now being confined, I didn't have to travel so much. So I stayed at home. I went shopping by bike or walking. That was it. So in that, for me, life has changed a lot. And let's see how much of that will stay after COVID-19.
Thank you. Jarmila?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jarmila Placha, and I work as a managing director of SKODA Auto DigiLab, which is a subsidiary of SKODA Auto. Our goal is to develop new digital solutions for future mobility and then fulfill the mission of our parent company, SKODA Auto, to become a provider of smart mobility solutions. We have our branches in Israel, where we are engaged in identifying new technologies. And we are also active with a small digital team in China and India since 2020 and 2019. We have already launched several projects in multimodal transportation, micro-mobility, and shared economy. And we are cooperating on a long-term basis with technological companies, including advanced global startups, universities, venture capital funds, and innovative corporations. And of course, we have been working with Israeli startups and technology companies since already 2017. And currently, we have more than 20 projects in our Israeli portfolio. We have a very small, fully dedicated team located in Tel Aviv, and we are working closely with our strategic partner, Champion Motors. We are focusing on technology scouting and business development in close collaboration with our mother company, SKODA Auto, and other colleagues from other VW Group brands. We are already cooperating intensively with several Israeli startups, for example, Anagog, XM Cyber, Silentium, or Chakratech, and many more. And if you're asking me personally about my mobility behavior, of course, I'm driving Skoda car because I work for Skoda. But in my private life, I love to test different multimodal means of transportation. I'm using bike, I'm using e-scooters. And in Prague, we launched last year first ever motor scooters. The project called B-Rider, and it seems to be very successful because especially in cities, people prefer to use other means of transportation, not cars only, but to combine it in a multimodal way with, for example, shared bikes, shared cars. It's a question, and a good question, what will COVID-19 crisis do with the overall mobility offering, because people have the tendency to keep themselves protected. So it will be a huge challenge for everyone active in the mobility world. But as I said, we love challenges, and we are already proactively working on different solutions, how to prepare the company for the new world which is coming after COVID-19.
Amazing, thank you. Dominic?
Hi, everyone. Excited to be on this panel. Dominic Papa, I'm the Vice President for the Smart State Initiative at the Arizona Commerce Authority. So the Arizona Commerce Authority is the state of Arizona's premier economic development organization. But I like to say that I'm a recovering city employee. I used to work for the city of Phoenix, which is the 5th largest city here in America. And really in my role, what we look to do is how do we develop the governance frameworks, the partnerships that are going to be necessary to really accelerate the adoption of emerging technology solutions that could help solve the unprecedented challenges that not only our cities face, but our state faces as well. And, we're tremendously excited to have the fantastic leadership of a governor who's very supportive of emerging technology, specifically around mobility. So in 2018, our governor signed an executive order that established the Institute for Automated Mobility. And the whole goal behind that institute was to build a public-private partnership to really drive the acceleration of automated vehicle technology in Arizona. And so a lot of our work is working across sectors and across industries to really drive the adoption of these automated vehicle technologies. And so it's an exciting place to be because really in Arizona, it's the government saying, how can we allow these technologies to flourish? And so it's a great place to be. And I have to say, pre-COVID, I was much like yourself. I was heavily dominated by my personal vehicle. However, you might hear it in the background. I just moved to downtown Phoenix, and after COVID hit, I haven't seen my car in 3 months. I'm getting 3 months to the gallon, I like to say right now. And so I've been walking more. I've been leveraging the light rail that you'll probably hear in the background a little bit more. And so actually, when this, post-COVID, I don't see myself going back to my own vehicle. I think I'll try to stay, leveraging the light rail, leveraging public transportation or rideshare.
Okay, that's great. Guys, thank you for sharing and about your personal life and to learn a little bit more about your activities. And, all of us are working with innovation and trying to push new technologies and to bring new things into life. And crisis could be something that some people see in a challenge, and some people see it as an opportunity. And as innovators, we see that as an opportunity, obviously. And like Winston Churchill said, never waste a good crisis. So what do you think are the opportunities and the things that we see here today with this crisis to change the behavior in the city or to bring more innovation to the city life? And maybe, Jarmila, maybe you can start.
Our team at SKODA Auto DigiLab always looks forward. We always try to identify new needs of customers, new trends, and new opportunities. And we also strongly believe that COVID-19 will change many business areas, and we want to be part of it and ready for it. COVID-19 crisis definitely changed the way how people travel and how people move around in the cities and outside the cities. That is why we have already started with a special scouting for new ideas relevant for automotive industry and mobility world, and we identified already several streams. We invite the overall ICT and startup community to join us and help us to overcome the crisis together. And we plan to organize so-called COVID mobility race at the very beginning of June, specifically June from the 4th till the 7th. This event is unfortunately going to be online, the same like EcoMotion conference, which is unfortunate because you are missing this emotional sharing of new ideas. And the objective is to attract the best ideas and technologies that will help us to solve several new post-COVID challenges, and there will be many. We organized this event as a global one in collaboration with our SKODA Auto DigiLab colleagues in Israel, of course, China and India. And that's why I'm mentioning this information here, because we hope we receive many interesting ideas from Israeli startup and tech community in the fields of car disinfection, online car sales, logistics, and delivery. The customers and the applicants can use already existing solution for new use cases. And I'm sure you are also interested to find out more about challenges of the COVID mobility race. I already mentioned safety and disinfection of cars, which is completely new area for all of us. But there are several other challenges like virtual showrooms, car online sales, or safety of overall mobility shared services. You can apply as an individual hacker for the hackathon or as an established company with a product that can help to solve the post-COVID business challenges. And the registration will be soon available at www.covidmobilityrace.com. And I believe that this crisis will change the world, but if we are prepared for it, we can also find new business opportunities. Because whether we like it or not, people and the goods will keep moving. And we need to develop new sustainable solutions for mobility in the cities and outside the cities for all the customers. And that's why I'm really happy that we use the crisis COVID as an opportunity. And I hope that many other companies, including Israeli startups, will follow and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. I really hope to see more car companies seeing it as an opportunity, because I think that my personal, at least, opinion on it, and guys, feel free after that to think your opinion. I think people will keep using personal cars, and we're going to see a reduction in usage of public transportation, because people would like to avoid interaction with other people around them, because there's nothing you can do. Public transportation is the most efficient way to move around, especially in cities when you try to move around a lot of people in a high capacity. But I think COVID-19 created some kind of fear of sharing the same space with other people, because it's just like getting your higher risks to get infected. So I think private cars are going to be there. But I think, like Dominic mentions, like I think the fact that we had such a long period of time of not touching our cars, and I see it a lot around me, even here in the US suburbs, people tend to think maybe we can do it differently. Maybe we can, not just using our cars. Maybe we can use different kind of mode of transportation. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this gonna play after COVID-19, during this period of time when it's like, in a certain way, you want to have some kind of a personal space, and you not necessarily want to use just your car, because the car, if we're going to move from public transportation, even the fraction of people are going to move from public transportation to cars, we're going to see a lot of traffic and conjunctions in cities that just going to block those cities. Maria, maybe you have thoughts about it?
Yeah, sure. What we're seeing is that many people now use their bikes and they walk. That's because, of course, they don't move very far. right? So, but once the lockdown and the confinements will be lifted, of course, people will travel back to work, and they will need to travel larger distances. So there, the car will have some benefits over. So in London, they say after the lockdown, they expect that 8 million trips will have to be done by other means of transport, because people are just afraid to use public transport, and rightly so. And the World Health Organization, they recommend people to use bicycles and walk whenever possible. But of course, the other safe means of transport is the car. So what we need to find is a sustainable way to integrate the different modes for different users, for different type of users. We have users that cannot walk far distances, or that cannot take public transport because it might not be accessible enough. So these people will have to be able to still use cars, but maybe different concepts of cars. So cars that are electric, zero emission, smaller cars. So why do we need those SUVs in the city centers? So maybe people living in the center of a city can have smaller cars. So we need to rethink mobility overall as a system, and not only cars, bicycles, walking. It has to be thought as really a comprehensive system.
Dominic?
No, I think that's a very great point. And what I'm really interested in seeing from this crisis is that for the first time, governments are being very innovative, right? They're leveraging the crisis. All of a sudden, they're thinking fast, they're acting fast, they're failing fast, right? Because they have to react and respond to this crisis. And so it's the governments are saying, wow, we can actually move pretty quickly when we want to. And so what I'm really pushing is, how do we not just allow governments to think innovatively and act innovatively in times of crisis, but how do we build that culture of innovation long-term sustainable, right? And how do we really leverage this idea of governments as a platform to solve challenges, right? For instance, I think one of the biggest things that we are actively trying to do is transform the state of Arizona into a living test bed for these technologies to solve challenges. For an example, one of the major challenges we face in the city of Phoenix is we have the #1 highest pedestrian fatality rate in the country. More people die on our streets than anywhere else in the country. And so what we're trying to do as the government is saying, okay, here's our challenge. Come, bring us your technologies. Come help us solve this challenge. Leverage our streets, leverage our intersection, leverage our campuses, but to test technologies that can help solve a challenge. And so one of the things we're actively doing is trying to, again, build the regulatory frameworks that allow for innovative technology companies, which a lot are coming out of Israel, to come to Arizona, test their technologies, help us solve these challenges, and do so in kind of a living lab environment. And I will say one of the things that we're actively trying to do is build better public-private partnerships, specifically leveraging our campuses, our universities as these test beds, because cities traditionally don't like to fail, right? We're not really risk takers. We don't like that. But guess what? Universities love to fail, and they love to fail all the time. That's what happens on universities. And so we're actively trying to figure out, okay, how do we leverage our campuses, our universities as these test beds for emerging mobility solutions, test it on the campus, prove it, and then scale it to the surrounding municipality. So we're really trying to figure out that public-private partnership of, how do we actually provide the environment for these technologies to be tested, proved, scaled.
That's very interesting. If you mentioned already like tested and maybe scale, there is some trend that I see that's happening right now around cities, which is areas that are car-free. Now, with the social distancing, like cities are trying to give people more kind of a space and closing streets or portions of streets that's going to be only for pedestrians and car-free kind of zones.
Boaz, can I ask you a question? Since you are a founder of a micro mobility company, and that is actually something I'm really concerned about. So what will happen with all the many innovative startups, small companies bringing new mobility services to us? I mean, you don't have the reserves to actually survive without having customers paying for your services. So how are you coping in these times? How are what instruments working for you?
That's a great question. I think that this time is a very challenging time for micromobility. Personally, my company is not a service provider for the customers. We're providing services for the micromobility operators. So Navmatic is basically offering a sub-meter level position for micromobility. And by the way, it's relevant for a lot of other mobility services, because we believe that if you're a customer, you don't want to look for your scooter or e-bike in a radius of sometimes a block away, because the GPS is not good enough. So you want to have it pinpoint. If you see it on your phone, you want to see the scooter when you see it on the phone. And I agree with you. I think it's a very challenging time for micromobility. We see a reduction of 98% of usage in micromobility today. And I think it's going to be a time for consolidation. We see it happening today with Uber and Uber that sold Jump to Lime, basically on a deal that Lime, their valuation was cut in billions of dollars now. We're going to see, I think, more and more consolidations. It's going to be less companies. We're going to see less smaller companies and more bigger companies that can survive that kind of starvation period. But I believe that the companies that are going to survive that starvation kind of period of not service of micromobility are going to enjoy from increase of the usage, because we all talked about it right now. Like, people would try to use more kind of alternative mode of transportation, and I believe that shared mobility of micromobility is the most efficient way of doing it. There was one allegory that I heard that I really liked. Using shared micromobility is like using your shopping carts in the market. Like, it's the only thing you share is the handlebar, and you don't think about bringing carts with you to the shopping center. You just bring a wipe and using it. You don't want to carry it with you everywhere. And I think it's the same thing with micromobility. Most people would prefer not to buy one, especially post crisis, when salaries went down and people will have less and less money to own things. They would like to more share. And I think sharing micromobility will be the most efficient way. So I think, to your question, I think it's sort of like we're going to see a lot of consolidations, and we're going to see a reduction in the short term. But in the long term, we're going to see an increase, because people are going to move from public transportation and other mode of transportation to micromobility.
Right.
So maybe last questions for you guys. We're in EcoMotion aiming a lot for startups. What do you think, if you were recommending to a startup, what kind of one opportunity or two opportunities you think that they should tackle, or they should aim for? Jarmila, you were mentioning about your challenge, so maybe you're going to take the opportunity to start with. What do you think are the biggest ones that you should tackle?
I believe that many traditional businesses nowadays, after post-COVID, will have troubles to keep the current traditional businesses running. So I can see every business has a need for innovation just now. The question is, how many of those traditional businesses will survive? Automotive business will be struggling for some time, because as you can imagine, and you already mentioned, many people will have problems to finance their private expenditures. And of course, safety remains one of the main issues, not only for shared mobility, but also for mobility as such. People are afraid to use public transportation nowadays. And so all of these relevant topics, and as I already mentioned, that we want to identify new solutions in the areas like car disinfection, online car sales, how to improve even the logistics and delivery. We saw a lot of business being shifted from the offline to online platforms. How can this be sustainable in different business areas? And of course, we would like to develop new business ideas in, for example, new ways how the cars and products are being sold and offered to the customers, like virtual showrooms. And of course, last but not least, safety and security of the customers is the number one. So any new disinfection methodologies might be relevant not only for automotive but also for other industries. But I can see a huge space for innovation for every traditional business, because all of us will be struggling nowadays. And I just still hope that if we are ready and open for new opportunities, as you correctly said, every single crisis means also a new opportunity. But we need to be brave, we need to be fast, we need to be open for collaboration. And that's why I hope that many startups will also use their current solutions, and they will just adjust it to the new use cases. So it's not that you need to develop a completely new idea or new technology, but just look at the current challenges in post-COVID world, use your solution and be fast, because the traditional industries will be struggling, and we are really hoping to start collaborating with new ideas that will help us to survive and to develop our business.
Great. Maria?
Yeah, so I can only support what Jarmila said. So I think, adjustment and diversification, although it's difficult for startups, of course, but I mean, that's a major survival factor, right? But then I think to work in an ecosystem, that sounds like easy, simple. It's not. But so engage in networks, and this is what we're trying to provide as EIT, to the startups to really connect with the bigger industry players, connect with also the cities. So we have that network. We provide instruments also for acceleration of startups. So get involved with us. We're happy to support. And in terms of where the innovation lies, I think the startups, they have great ideas. So we don't need to tell them actually what the solution is. We need to tell them what the challenges are, and this is where the cities and the governments and so on come in, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect segue. You're exactly right. I mean, both of you mentioned so many great things, and I'm writing it down feverishly because you're right. We have to be ready. We have to be open. We have to be accepting of new business ideas, right? And so, coming from the government side of this, what we want to do here in Arizona is we want to become the future mobility hub in America, where these new ideas can come and flourish. We want to be that state where it says, we're ready, we're open, bring us your innovative technologies. You're a startup, come to Arizona. We want to test these ideas. We want to solve challenges. And I think one thing that we actively try to keep at the top of our head, and what I try to tell people over and over, is that collaboration is the new competitive advantage, and the cities, the states that figure out how to collaborate will propel themselves to the forefront of this fourth industrial revolution. And those cities, those states that can't collaborate, that don't know how to work together, that don't know how to kind of build strong teams will be the ones left behind in this new digital dustbin, as I like to say. And so we're actively, from the government's perspective, especially in Arizona, with the great leadership from our governor, is saying, let's be open, let's be bold, let's allow ourselves to think innovatively. And so that's what we're trying to do on our side.
So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, idea, and everything with us. And we'll see you hopefully next year in EcoMotion.
Definitely.
Yes.
Hope for that.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.